that is a sub of the African Union Charter on Peoples and Human Rights. We are asking for these people, that is members of the legislature, the clerks in particular, who are the institutional memory card of the National Assembly and the state assemblies, to understand the law, to also understand what needs to be done to push for its domestication, its implementation, and particularly finance. Because when you pass a law and you do not provide funds for its implementation, it's as good as it remains on the shelf. So basically, those are the three things we want: increase knowledge, create energy and commitment around the passage of the bill, and then partnerships that ensure that when this domestication happens, particularly under Section 9 and 26, we are worried because Section 9 deals with women's political participation, governance, and the inclusion of everybody. And then 26 speaks to financing and also the responsibility of state parties.
In the course of your speech, you made mention about gender financing. Is there any
Come again?
gender financing?
Yeah, gender financing.
Is there any experience you have that these laws are passed and there are no finances?
No, generally as a culture, or rather as an expectation, advocates, push for laws. But then once we get the laws, we seem to forget that there are two other legs of the job about, getting laws or policies passed. That is to say, a legislature passes a law, but it also has a responsibility of financing because laws do not implement themselves and you need resources to implement laws. So the institutions or the government agencies and departments responsible for implementing those laws bring budgets to the state or the National Assembly and say they will do A, B, C, D in compliance with the obligations of the state or the country in those laws. And that means the legislator should then be looking at what are those actions. And that's why we're very particular about having members of the treaty committee, foreign affairs, rules and business, um, uh, um, women affairs, and the very key organizations that will be putting an eye within their own system to see that. And that's why we are pushing for gender responsive budgeting. Good enough, from 2020, I think 2020, 21, we've had a consciousness arising within the legislature about the essence of gender budgeting. And they have been trying, they have worked with civil society to ensure that we see some response. But we are saying it should be more deliberate, it should be more purposeful in terms of fulfilling the obligations of our country to international fora.
So what roles do you want? You've invited the media and the civil society.
Yes.
What role do you want them to really play?
Civil society is a big box. We have, in particular, women's rights organizations who have been our partners over the last 23 years, ever since the Maputo Protocol was passed. We have media. Media have also been our partners all these 23 years, working and amplifying the content, the knowledge around it, and then the demands for its passage. And then we have the legislature. Like I said earlier on, the legislative structure has the principals, those are the elected representatives. Then they have their staffing, and then we have the clerks, or that are the committees, the working committees of the assembly. Now, the clerks in the working committees of the assembly are the resident or the memory card of the legislature, because a legislator will finish a term and either move on to another level or move out to another role. But the important thing is that in the committees, residence is given to the knowledge that was the things that that committee did to pass laws, or the things that the committee did to push for budgeting. All the memory of what has happened is in the committee. At that level, the most important person is the clerk. And because the clerks are not political appointees, we find them very, very reliable in terms of keeping the tab on what has happened, and we can always move on rather than start anew. Thank you.
Okay, as the custodians, or what you want to call the institutional memory of the National Assembly, I think that the Committee on Women Affairs over time have tried to see that the Maputo Declaration, which Nigeria is a signatory to, becomes an existing law. A lot of times, a lot of persons have had the conversation of whether the VAP Act replaces the Maputo Declaration. But then again, I also know that the chairman, House Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development, have been pushing for some laws, that will make and include women. I think one of her bill was to make sure that women are carried along in political parties. Some of them are given, express pass. She has also sponsored some bills. I'm talking about Honorable Kafilat Obara. She has also sponsored some bills, to increase women participation in the National Assembly. And she's also pushing for some laws. Just recently, she also made a bill to also amend the VAP Act, which is to also increase punishment for, some all form of discrimination against violence against women. Or the bill is actually to prohibit, and to make, stiffer penalties for women that, and enablers of, all form of harmful practices that affect women and girls in society. And I think that Honorable Kafilat also is also doing some other working on some other bills, to increase women participation and some other issues that will also increase women participation in the National Assembly.
The Senate Committee on Women Affairs is a very critical committee in respect to the Maputo Protocol, but we have not received the ratified copy yet. The ratified copy is in the custody of the Foreign Affairs Ministry because they are in charge of discussing and signing any foreign protocol and treaty on behalf of the federal government. So they have not yet transmitted it to the National Assembly. Yes, as it is.
Okay, but what are those things Nigeria women should expect if they sign, if it's
The
implemented?
Article 4 of the protocol emphasizes on political participation. That is, they want the representation to increase from merely three seats to 35%. That is one of the major components in the protocol. Participation, decision making by women. The more participants you have, the more the ability to contribute and participate in governance. So what they need to do is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs need to transmit the ratified copy to the National Assembly through the special advisor to the President on National Assembly matters, through the office of the clerk, and then before it gets to the Committee on Rules and Business, before they now put it on the other paper, and then it gets to the floor of the National Assembly, and that is where the discussions will happen, and that is where the domestication will happen.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much, sir.
you're
Sir,
welcome.
your full name, sir.
Abubakar Widi Jalo. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Let me get your name.